Hello everyone, and welcome back to Life Single Review. I'm so happy you're joining us today for something very special. I hope this message finds you in good health and high spirits, ready to dive deep into a story that will touch your heart in ways you might not expect. Have you ever wondered what drives a man to work tirelessly, day after day, without complaint? What secret dreams live inside the heart of someone who seems content with so little? What does it mean when a poor man looks at a piece of land and sees not just soil, but his entire future? Today we're stepping inside Dee's mind and heart to understand the promise he made to himself, a promise nobody else knows about. This isn't just a story about wanting to own land. It's about a man's desperate need to prove his worth, to build something from nothing, and to finally feel like he deserves the love he's been given. This is Dee's story, told from his perspective, revealing the pain and hope he carries silently every single day. Before we begin, please subscribe to Life Single Review and hit that notification bell so you never miss these powerful stories. If you believe in the strength of quiet determination and hidden dreams, give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. The sun is blazing overhead and the air is thick with heat. Day sits alone in the middle of the vast dragon fruit garden, taking what should be a simple rest break. Huyen has moved to another section of the orchard to continue picking, giving him a rare moment of solitude. He wipes the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand and looks around at the endless rows of cactus-like plants stretching in every direction. The garden is beautiful in its own way, organized, productive, alive with possibility. He reaches down and touches the red soil beneath him. It's rich, fertile, the kind of earth that yields abundant harvests year after year. His fingers press into it, feeling its texture, its moisture, its promise. If only this land were mine, he thinks. And the thought hits him with such force that he has to close his eyes for a moment. Not just this exact land, but any land, a piece of earth he could call his own. Not someone else's garden where he works as hired help, but his own soil, his own trees, his own future. In his mind, he can see it so clearly. Rows of dragon fruit that he planted himself, vegetable patches tended by his own hands, chicken coops he built, a small house in the center where Huyen wouldn't have to worry anymore, and Maya could run freely without being told she's on someone else's property. But then reality crashes back in, as it always does. What does he actually have to offer? Dee takes inventory of his life with brutal honesty. 2 empty hands. No house, no land, no savings to speak of, no family wealth to inherit, no education that opens doors to high-paying jobs. Just his body, his willingness to work, and a heart that's tired of being told it's not enough. He thinks about Huyen and feels a complicated mix of love and inadequacy. She chose him despite everything, despite his poverty, despite his lack of prospects, despite what people said about her, taking up with a poor laborer. She told him once with tears in her eyes, "You have a good heart, and that's what matters most." Those words meant everything to him. They still do. But late at night, when he can't sleep because he's calculating how to make next month's expenses work, he wonders, is a good heart really enough? Can love pay for Maya's school supplies? Can kindness put food on the table every single day? Can a gentle spirit build the future his family deserves? He looks at his hands, calloused, scarred from years of hard labor, strong but ultimately limited. These hands are all he has, and somehow they need to be enough to build an entire life. Dee stands up, unable to sit still with the dream now alive in his mind. He walks slowly through the garden rows, studying everything with new eyes. If this were his land, if he could somehow, someday, make this dream real, what would he do? He begins to plan it out mentally, section by section. That corner over there, with good sun exposure, would be perfect for dragon fruit. These plants take time to establish but produce for years once they're mature. He could start with maybe 50 plants and expand gradually. The section with more shade could be for vegetables, lettuce, cabbage, herbs, quick-growing crops that could provide steady income while the fruit trees mature. And over there, near that large tree, he'd build the animal enclosures. Chickens, definitely. Maybe some pigs eventually. The chickens would provide eggs and meat, and their droppings would fertilize the soil. Everything connected, nothing wasted. In the center of it all, he imagines a small house. Nothing fancy, just solid walls, a good roof, maybe 3 rooms. One for him and Huyen, one for Maya, where she could study in peace and privacy, and a common area for meals and family time. He pictures Huyen cooking in a real kitchen instead of the cramped space they have now. He imagines Maya doing homework at her own desk, not at the shared table where everything gets crowded. The image is so vivid, so real in his mind, that for a moment he forgets it's just a dream. The memories come flooding back, unbidden, but impossible to stop. Day remembers himself at 20 years old. So young, so naive, so desperately hopeful. Both his parents had died by the time he was 18, leaving him with absolutely nothing except the clothes on his back and a determination to survive. There was no inheritance, no family land to fall back on, no relatives willing or able to take him in. He became a drifter, moving from job to job, town to town, taking whatever work he could find. Construction sites where he carried heavy materials until his back screamed in pain. Rice fields where he planted and harvested under the merciless sun. Fruit orchards exactly like this one, where he worked as hired help for landowners who barely looked at him. The pay was always low, sometimes unfairly so. He remembers bosses who found excuses to dock his wages, claiming he worked too slowly, or broke equipment, or any number of made-up reasons. There were nights when he slept on construction sites because he couldn't afford even the cheapest room. Meals of leftover rice that workers left behind, or the cheapest instant noodles stretched to last 2 days. But the physical hardships weren't even the worst part. It was the way people looked at him, or more accurately, the way they looked through him, as if he were invisible, irrelevant, beneath notice. Just another poor laborer, one of thousands, completely replaceable. Then came Lan, and for a brief, beautiful moment, Dee thought his life might actually change. He was 25, working at a construction site near her village. She was the daughter of relatively well-off farmers, not rich by any means, but stable, secure, with several hectares of productive land. Lan noticed him in a way no one else had. She brought water to the workers during hot days, and she always smiled at him specifically, asked him how he was doing, seemed genuinely interested in his answers. They started talking, then meeting secretly, then falling in love. Real love, or at least what Dee believed was real love. Lan told him, "I don't care that you don't have money or land. You're hardworking and kind, and that's what matters." He believed her. He worked even harder, saved every possible dong, imagining their future together. He would work his way up, maybe save enough to lease a small plot of land, prove himself worthy of her family's approval. But when he finally gathered the courage to formally ask for her hand in marriage, her parents' response was swift and brutal. Her father looked at him with open contempt. "You want to marry my daughter? You who have nothing, not a single square meter of land to your name? What exactly do you think you can provide for her? She'd spend her whole life in poverty, struggling just to eat. Over my dead body will I let that happen?" Dee tried to explain his plans, his willingness to work hard, his love for Lan, but her father cut him off. "Love doesn't put rice in the bowl, boy. Love doesn't build a house or pay for medicine when someone gets sick. Get out of my house and don't come back." Lan cried and pleaded with her parents, but in the end, she wasn't strong enough to defy them. Within 2 months, she was married to another man, someone with inherited land, the established house, financial security. Dee saw them together once, accidentally, at the local market. Lan looked miserable, but she was wearing nice clothes and gold jewelry. The man beside her looked prosperous and proud. Dee turned away before she could see him. The aftermath was almost worse than the rejection itself. Word spread through the small community about the poor laborer who'd had the audacity to pursue a farmer's daughter. People laughed about it openly. "Did you hear about that guy, Dee? Thought he could marry up without having a single thing to his name. Delusional. Some people don't know their place. He should stick to day labor. That's all he's qualified for." The comments followed him for months. Every time he took a new job, someone would eventually bring it up, and he'd see that look in their eyes, pity mixed with contempt. He learned to keep his head down, to never share his thoughts or dreams, to accept his place at the bottom of society's ladder. But that was before Huyen. Dee returns to the present moment, sitting in this dragon fruit garden, and thinks about how drastically his life has changed in the past 5 years. Meeting Huyen was like being given a second chance at everything. At love, at family, at believing he might actually deserve happiness. She didn't care about his poverty. She'd been through her own hell with her ex-husband, and understood that material wealth means nothing if there's no kindness or integrity behind it. She chose him not despite his circumstances, but because of who he was as a person. And Maya, sweet, innocent Maya, accepted him into her life with a trust that still humbles him. When she calls him Uncle Day, or sometimes Daddy Day, His heart swells with a love he never knew he was capable of feeling. They're not connected by blood, but he would do anything for that little girl. He would work himself into the ground to make sure she has opportunities he never had, to make sure she never feels the shame of poverty that has defined his entire existence. This family, this unexpected, precious family, has given him something he thought he'd lost forever: hope. But with that hope comes an enormous weight of responsibility. He can't fail them. He can't be another man who disappoints them, who can't provide, who leaves them struggling. He has to be better, do better, prove that their faith in him wasn't misplaced. Day pulls a small, worn piece of paper from his pocket. He's been carrying this paper for weeks now, updating it constantly with meticulous calculations. On it, he's tracked every source of income and every expense with brutal honesty. Monthly income, approximately 5 million dong from various jobs. Harvesting fruit like today, occasional construction work, helping neighbors with repairs. It varies month to month, never quite reliable, but that's the average. Monthly expenses, 2 million for the room they rent, 1 million for food, if they're very careful, 300,000 for Maya's school expenses, 200,000 for utilities and other necessities. That leaves roughly 1.5 million dong per month to save, if nothing goes wrong. And things always go wrong. Someone gets sick and needs medicine. Maya needs new shoes. The motorcycle breaks down and needs repairs. But if he's optimistic and assumes they can actually save that full amount, he does the math. A small plot of land in this area costs at least 200 million dong for just half a hectare. Not much, but enough to start. At 1.5 million per month, that's 133 months. 11 years. Over a decade before he can even buy the land, let alone build a house on it, buy plants and animals, set up the infrastructure needed to make it productive. Day stares at the number. 11 years. He'll be nearly 40 by then. Maya will be 16, almost ready for university. Huyen will have spent her prime years waiting for stability that seems impossibly far away. But giving up isn't an option. Day takes out a pen and writes at the bottom of the paper, underlining it twice for emphasis. Promise to myself, in 10 years, I will have our own farm for Huyen and Maya. 10 years instead of 11, because he'll find a way to work harder, save more, maybe take on additional jobs at night. He'll cut back on his own needs, fewer meals, cheaper clothes, no small luxuries. Every dong saved brings them one step closer. He folds the paper carefully and tucks it back into his wallet, right behind the one photo he has of Huyen and Maya together, smiling. This promise is his secret. He won't tell Huyen because he doesn't want to burden her with the pressure of waiting for something that might take a decade to achieve. He won't tell anyone else because he can't bear the thought of their skepticism or mockery. This promise is between him and himself, a covenant with his own soul. It's what he'll think about when he's exhausted and tempted to quit. It's what will drive him to wake up before dawn and work until after sunset. It's his North Star, his reason for pushing through pain and discouragement. Because this land, this farm, this future, it's not just about property ownership. It's about proving that he has value, that he's worthy of the love he's been given. that a poor man's dreams can become real through sheer determination and unwavering commitment. Day gets to his feet, brushing the red soil from his hands. In the distance, he can hear Huyen calling his name, asking for help with something. He waves back to let her know he's coming. The dream is still there in his mind, vivid and real. But now it's coupled with a concrete plan and a solemn promise. 10 years might seem like an eternity. But Day has learned that patient endurance is sometimes the only path available to people like him. Every day of hard work brings him incrementally closer to that dream. Every dong saved, every skill learned, every connection made. The land in his imagination isn't just soil and plants. It represents dignity, security, proof that he's more than the poor laborer everyone dismissed. It's his way of honoring Huyen's faith in him and giving Maya the stable foundation she deserves. As he walks back toward Huyen, his shoulders straighten and his steps become more purposeful. He has a goal now, a timeline, a promise to keep. The journey will be long and difficult, but he's no stranger to hardship. This time, though, he's not enduring suffering without purpose. He's building towards something, and that makes all the difference. This is Dee's hidden story, the dream he carries silently, the promise he made when no one was watching. He's a man of few words, but iron determination. Someone who believes that actions speak louder than proclamations. If his quiet resolve touched your heart, please like and share this video. Subscribe to Life Single Review to follow Dee's journey over the coming years. Will he achieve his 10-year goal? Can determination and love overcome the obstacles of poverty? Stay with us to find out, and we'll see you in the next video.